It's News from Heaven. Welcome back. Really excited to have you here today because we're going to kind of wade into this divide that we get here. The show is about how angels connect to you while you are reading the Bible. And we get a lot of really nice comments on this channel, but we get these two different camps that, well, at times somebody will say, why you bring the Bible into things? Haven't we moved past the Bible? This isn't that sort of old school religion. And then another group that's, why don't you mention the Bible more? And Swedenborg has, I think, the best solution to this conundrum facing at least the Western world or the Christian world or the post-Christian world right now. So let's look at how you have the Bible functioning as something that creates spiritual connection. And really, I want to say to both of you sides, we're all trying to do the same thing, which is that we are trying to connect to love, which is the essence behind God. We're trying to make life better. The only reason why any of us are in this religion-y, spirituality-y type game, and I would argue really a lot of people's motivations for anything in life is we're here and we're trying to say, how do you make things better? How do we get past the things, the hurdles that are in our way right now, the things that make life miserable? Maybe you've heard of them. It's often called your own thoughts and feelings. The stuff that's coming into you, the mental stream, the psychological trash patch in the ocean that just lets all this stuff in, that makes life and tasks and things so much harder. How do we get through it? That's both people who are interested in Bible and people who are not, and people who are interested, really any tradition out there. What we're all trying to do, what we're all hoping to do, is find the right way to clear this out and connect us to the truth and to the love that's in it. So let's see how we can get the Bible taking its place as this important mechanism, and maybe showing you some abilities that it has that you didn't think it had, or Swedenborg was very adamant it had anyway. Like and subscribe. That's important. I'm not going to tell you why, but just do it. Click the bell if you haven't already. We're going into Sacred Scripture, White Horse. You can download the link in the description. Starting in number 64, so let's start to see Bible as transistor radio. And we're going to toss in the levels of heaven. You're going to get a lot of free stuff out of this episode. Abundant experience has made it clear to me, this would be Swedenborg, that spiritual angels are focused on the spiritual meaning of the Word. There we have our Bible. And that heavenly angels are focused on its heavenly meaning. Already, we're setting ourselves up for a multi-tiered existence here, where you have this book that we can all read, should we choose to, with stories and parables and psalms and things in it. And the claim right away is that within this text, and it's not like you can flip to the back of it and say, okay, where's the second level? So when we're saying within the text that you're all familiar with, to various extents, there is a spiritual and a heavenly level that go along with spiritual and heavenly angels. So we've already got, it's worth it at the beginning to establish a really solid diagram. So I'll just write for a moment or two here. We've got spiritual angels. Green is the spiritual color, this show. And we've got heavenly angels. Oh, purple. Why did I pick purple? I don't really have a small purple marker. So heavenly angels are just a little more robust, a little more chunky. Okay. There's these heavenly angels. They're up there, and they're somehow interfacing each of them with levels from this book. I have been made aware that when I was reading the Word in its literal meaning, we've got a third level. We got a third level, and this is the kind you can read. This is the kind Swedenborg could read. So down here, there's us on this level, and this would be the text that anybody can pick up. Can you get the Bible at Barnes & Noble? Like, where do you buy it? It just always seems to be around. That's the level we're familiar with. But somehow, this is stacked within these other ones. In its literal meaning, sorry for stopping in the middle of a sentence, I'll put a comma there, a communication was opened with one community or another of the heavens, and that spiritual angels were understanding in a spiritual way and heavenly angels in a heavenly way what I was understanding in an earthly way, and that this was happening instantaneously. Swedenborg is sitting here reading the Bible as he's doing it. Something in this text that he's reading is instantly at internet speeds transferring up and being understood, whatever those correspond to. We have these different set of meaning for the spiritual angels, and that was going up even farther into some kind of mystical purple, we can barely make it out because the highlighter is so thick, level of meaning. These were all stacked, and it was Swedenborg taking the initial action that actually set this chain in motion. So he was somehow setting some kind of agenda for what was going on in the minds of these angels up here through the reading of the text. So already we've got something very high-tech here in the Word. I have been aware of this so many thousand times that I can no longer have any doubt about it. So this is not some bizarre occurrence that happened to him once. Maybe, part of what we're doing is trying to develop a plan by which we can be connecting to angels at will. It sounds like what he was able to sense this whenever he picked up the volume. There are also spirits who, and so that's good and well, but it's all kind of too nicey kumbaya. Angels are getting these different meanings. Let's add some intrigue. Let's add some espionage to this whole thing. And again, I know I always harp on it, but I love the idea of the living nature of the world Swedenborg describes. Even though we're going to be reading about spoiler alert, spirits using this very mechanism for negative purposes, it shows that it is a vibrant, living world, that you have the equivalent of credit card scams running in the spiritual world. It's not that this is angels only and no one can get in. Even though there's problems, it does fill me with this sense of, oh, it's real. It's real, and people there behave like people here behave. Back to our program. There are also spirits who live underneath the heavens. So we've got another layer down here. So this is, not quite in the human form, because if you're living down there, you've signed up for some things that are very non-human. So that, all the nastiness of antisocial behavior, will to control other people, whatever it is, sort of saps you of humanity, who misuse this communication. That this communication is part of an unchanging law of how things work, and it can be, like anything, misused. How do you do that? How do you hack into this Bible connection? What they do is repeat some things that are said in the literal meaning of the word. It's like Star Wars. So they see Swedenborg doing that. They get the Bible and they say, okay, I'm going to read a line here and mark the community with which communication has been affected. It's almost like they're annotating. They've got somehow they've got access to this, and they're saying, okay, well, this did this. They're writing in the margins. Mark the community with which communication had been affected. So it's this spiritual community, this heavenly one. This too I have often seen and heard, and they do that to try to gain access for whatever they're trying to do. I just think it's a fascinating anecdote that he left in there. This kind of first-hand experience has taught me that the word in its literal meaning is a divinely granted means of union with the Lord and with heaven. On this union by means of the word, see also what is presented in heaven and hell. And it's just fascinating dynamic, because the Bible is, for me personally, is an interesting, I think roller coaster might be a little more dramatic, but it's very much a variable climate, because I can get moments of great affection for text in the Bible, and I can feel like there's specific lines even in there that when I read them, I feel like this has some like deep meaning even beyond the text, that feels like this is just like a beautiful piece of poetry or something. And I wonder, and I think people have that, people get that with different parts of it. And is that because that particular line resonates with some community that you're connected to, and that's why that thing strikes you? And does that ripple out to the rest of life? Is that why people have the tastes they do in music and art and clothing and food, even because they're connected to these communities that also have an affinity for what those things represent? I don't know. So I'm saying at times I get very clear spiritual feeling connection from the Bible. There are times when I've loaded up on my Swedenborgian correspondence type things and I'm feeling like this is potent and this is direct and I get it. And then there are other times when it feels very opaque and very inert to me, that this is old text that doesn't have spiritual significance to me. There's a lot of it that is really troubling from a moral perspective. There's stuff that seems confusing, or at least like the diffuse. There's not the potency in here. So how? But yet Swedenborg here, who I don't know. I'm going to spill the beans here. I think he's cool, and he's saying this is a divinely granted means of union with the Lord. So how? This is sort of unpacking some of what this union is, our margin party over here, where we're connecting to these angels. And can we just increase the potency of our ability to go to this as a resource by learning a little more of what this connection is like? I am going to skip some stuff now. This 65, it's a great number, no offense. And it is giving you more details in how you could get this leveled structure. Read it yourself if you'd like. 66, he's giving examples in the rest of the world that show these kind of layers, like there are layers of meaning in the Bible. Read it, no offense to that. But I want to show you some examples of this connection, and he actually has 5 of the 10 commandments. We'll get through a few here, where he gives you, this is what it means to us, this is what it means to spiritual angels, this is what it means to heavenly angels. So, man, of course we're going to read that. Now I may offer some examples to make clear how spiritual angels draw their meaning, and let's keep our colors consistent here, right? Didn't we have heavenly was purple? Spiritual, heavenly draw their meaning from the earthly meaning. We'll keep earthly meaning as blue here, right? Yeah, all these colors are good. We may take 5 of the 10 commandments. So let's check out what you could possibly be getting in this way. I don't want to lose my color cheat sheet. Honor your father and mother. You heard of it. It's one of the commandments. They're all fairly famous. We understand. So this will be us here in the green. We understand father and mother to mean our earthly fathers and mothers, and any individuals who act as fathers and mothers for us. So your parents, right? And in whatever form that takes. We understand honoring them to mean admiring them and being obedient to them. A spiritual angel, though. So that's generally how people have taken that commandment, right? To be good to your parents, and that keeps society in order and everything like that. Is that the same thing for spiritual angels? Oh, I already ruined it. I said a spiritual would be, I got to flip it. That means rather than redo that, earthly is going to be green, spiritual is going to be blue. Is that cool? And are you really going to have to sit and watch me redo it? Come on, that wasn't that bad. All right, so now we're in blue mode. A spiritual angel, though, understands father to mean the Lord and mother to mean the church. Again, the church being a state of mind and heart within you, as well as the assemblage of people externally. So think of the church in the grandest, most fluid, impressive sense. And they understand honoring to mean loving. So there you have, and this you can see right now, I would argue, a jump between, an ethical jump, because parents are sometimes good. They're not always good. And to admire them because of the place that they're in relation to us can be a very good thing. It can be problematic at times. It's not always spot on, right? So that feels earthly, But then spiritual angel understands father to mean the Lord and mother to mean the church. The Lord and the church. The Lord is always good. The church, the church inside you is always good. At times, the church, obviously, these various religious sects can have all kinds of problems with them. Now, I don't know if that means the church in heaven, which is an upgrade on there, but maybe some fallibility in there, but still much more consistent. Now let's see, where could we go up from there? How could you get better than the Lord and the church? A heavenly angel understands father to mean the Lord's divine love, and mother the Lord's divine wisdom. So this is the Lord as our father and our mother, and honoring meaning to do what is good because of him. So there you go to having this divine love and divine wisdom, which are always good. and to love, not just to have affection for, but to do what they teach, and to do that on account of them, which is, as we just looked at in a previous episode, doing what is good because of the Lord. In our episode on fighting spiritual warfare, there I just remember the title, doing what is good because of the Lord, or because of universal love and wisdom. That is the only way to truly, there's a lot of wisdom in this last part, because of the Lord. So the heavenly mindset is much more permanently good. It has more insight and depth. So we see these, let's make the spiritual level, shine a little bit here. So you can see a progression here. But yet, these things are all related. The parents are what give us physical life. Both, in a lot of cases, they're the ones who actually conceived us. But then also, your parents are the ones who are giving you the nurturement, and everything that you need, the safety, the environment, to actually survive and grow physically. The Lord and the Lord in relation to the church, that's what gives us spiritual nourishment. That's what allows us to be reborn and brings us up. And then the Lord's divine love and wisdom is what leads us through every little part, which powers the ability to do all this. So it's not that they're unrelated to each other. They are layers in this chain. And to wrap all that up here and honor your father and mother, and that even if we read that, and even if we live it in a simple earthly understanding, that gives a platform for the spiritual angels to do this, and the heavenly angels to do this. And we be doing all these three at the same time to an extent. So that is part of how you have this divine accordion inside the text of the Bible. Do you want to do another one? I really want to. Come on, you have to. You're already watching. I'm not going to tell you where the button is to click away, because I just want to check out the stealing one. Has this fascinating flip on what it means. Okay, let's see if we remember my colors. Okay. The commandment, you are not to steal. Seems straightforward. I mean, it's got to be the same for all three, right? We understand stealing, we meaning we're on the earthly level, we understand stealing to mean theft, cheating, or depriving others of their assets by any means. Don't try to get around it and say, well, that's not really stealing. You know what stealing is. That's us. That makes sense. It's not too bad, and it's a good, I'm sure angels wouldn't steal, but how can we get deeper into that? A spiritual angel understands stealing to mean using false and evil devices to deprive people of the truths of their faith. It's like, which words do I highlight? They're all so good. Truths of their faith and their good, caring actions. Wow. So we start to see a levels focus here, because this really is about, we're depriving people of their treasure. This is a treasure chest. Those are coins in it. We're depriving people. Here's a little bill. Here's a little something valuable. We're depriving people of earthly stuff. Whereas in the spiritual level, we are depriving people of stuff that's inside their heart and mind. The treasures inside them. Their good thoughts and feelings. So using false and evil devices, whatever, misleading information, manipulation, whatever you're doing to get people to give up what's valuable in their heart, that's spiritual theft. And look here as we move up orders of magnitude in consequence, because you can do this and that messes with people, but this messes with people's spiritual life, which is what remains. So that's much more serious. Where could it go from here? A heavenly angel, though, understands stealing to mean giving ourselves credit for what belongs to the Lord and claiming his righteousness and worth as our own. Fascinating. How many times have I said fascinating this episode? Go back and check. Leave it in the comments. First person who does will get a gift certificate to Outback Steakhouse. I'm just kidding. We can't give you that. we don't. Please, we don't have the means. Okay. How is this up another level? This is stealing from the Lord. We go from stealing earthly possessions to stealing people's ideas to stealing the Lord's stuff. But I want to look at, like, how is that really a level up? Because in a way, it's like, whoa, you stole from the king, you stole from some kind of very powerful person, yikes. But you could say in another sense, well, the Lord's got so much more stuff. Wouldn't it matter more you're stealing from someone else? And really nothing in the Bible is God being vindictive and egomaniacal. And so why does this matter more? I would argue that this matters more because when we do what it's saying and to take the good things that come in from the Lord and yet cut off acknowledgement of the source and claim them as our own, which you could do 25 million shows about what exactly that means, but essentially it's I don't want to summarize it, it'll cheapen it, but I'm going to do it anyway. It's taking what is universally available from God, believing that instead we just our life that we have should be to serve only us, and that everybody else, which also receives their life from God, should be to serve only us. It's trying to pull all that into service below us. To do that separates us. The reason it's so harmful is it hurts us. And it hurts us, I would argue, more deeply than we hurt other people by trying to steal their things. And this could be why it's a magnitude. Because the way that God is trying to get us out of our head weather and rescue us is to get us to understand that he is taking care of everything that we could possibly need to be taken care of. That he's got every detail of our life worked out, that the Lord, who is infinite love and infinite wisdom, is managing everything, and everything that gets us so bent out of shape and so concerned and so terrified is nothing. And that by letting the Lord work in those ways, and by accepting the humility that loosens our grip on the principles that we believe strongly about, enough to allow ourselves to even examine ourselves and see what in myself do I need to let go of, where could I be, bullheaded and not understand. Doing that, allowing that process in, lets us regenerate, lets us be brought on this best path, and saves us from a lifetime of being pushed around by the clouds and things. So that stealing from the Lord makes it so hell can get access to us in the first place. When we don't steal, when we just acknowledge this partnership that we're in, and get excited and hyped about how closely connected we are to God, that's the secret to us getting protected from hell in the first place. So maybe that's why heavenly angels understand this commandment to be a warning against that, against pushing out the divine influence that saves us. So this connection through the Bible to these different layers is connecting us to these groups in heaven that understand just what we need in our spiritual life to help us. And hopefully some of that reverence we can feel at times is a little bit of their wisdom, coming down into us. And through that, God gaining the access to give us everything that's cool, because that's what God's all about. That's the news from heaven. Hope you liked it. Really glad to be able to talk through the minutiae of stuff like this with you. Like and subscribe and leave comments. Did it do anything good for you? We want to know. Unless you comment, I don't know. We never know if this helps anyone, and hopefully it did. But really, if it's between leaving a comment and going out and doing something, go do something. Let's take this. Let's make it into something that changes the world in little ways, and hopefully changes your mindset today. And you have some bright, nice head weather. See you soon.